The floor, does anybody? Thank you, Tina.
Sure, sorry. We'll start with the presentation from Moravian Historical Society this evening. We've got Susan Ellis-Wild here, who is the director.
No, just Susan Ellis.
Okay.
Not the representative, just Susan Ellis, yeah. Although I have been known to be wild every now and then. Well, thanks for inviting me tonight. The Moravian Historical Society has preserved, interpreted, and celebrated the rich culture of the Moravians since 1857. We're located in Nazareth. We maintain the 1740-1743 Whitfield House and the 1740 Gray Cottage, the oldest surviving Moravian structure in North America. Switch slides. So who are the Moravians? Moravians are a Protestant religious group from Europe who predate Martin Luther by about 100 years. They trace their history back to 1457 when followers of Jan Hus formed the Unity of the Borough. Savannah, Georgia. By 1740, however, that community had disbanded, and the Moravians moved north to Pennsylvania at the invitation of English evangelist George Whitefield to establish an orphanage on his 5,000-acre property that he called Nazareth. However, because of differing theological opinions, Whitefield and the Moravians separated, and the Moravians needed to find a new home. So most of you know that new home was located at the junction of the Monocacy Creek and the Lehigh, utilized by the entire community, but rather than a single family. In 1743, the Moravian School for Boys moved into the cottage. This became the first school in Nazareth. In 1755, it became home to the widows of Nazareth, and today it's under our care. We use it for programs, exhibits, and other public events. So when the, oh, go back. That's all right. Getting ahead of our, yeah. So when the Moravian Historical Society was founded, one of its first grassroots efforts for this fledgling organization was to purchase and restore the original God's Acre, or cemetery, graveyard in Nazareth. This image shows the formal opening of the new summer house, or observation tower, in 1918. If you look closely, you'll see the Bethlehem Trombone Choir on the top level there. They led a procession of people from Nazareth and Easton and Bethlehem from the square in Nazareth to the graveyard. The observation tower was used to spot enemy planes during World War II, as it was thought that Bethlehem Steel would be a prime target for attack. Today, it's become known as the Indian Tower, and members of the Nazareth area still enjoy the beauty of this place. It's especially beautiful at sunset. So our organization also maintains 8 other monuments or markers in Pennsylvania, New York, and Connecticut at sites of significant events in Moravian history. The Moravian Historical Society cares for over 20,000 important objects related to Moravian, Pennsylvania, and American history. Many of these items are extremely significant. Some of them include historic maps, drawings and prints from the early 18th century featuring colonial period architecture, town plans, and land surveys. We have a collection of over 10,000 books, periodicals, and manuscripts, including diaries from the community and publications from Benjamin Franklin's press. We have paintings, prints, and drawings from the 18th century, including works by influential Moravian artists, including John Valentine Height. And we have an outstanding collection of early Moravian firearms, including a rifle created by Andreas Albrecht, who taught William Henry II of the famous Henry gun-making family. We also have indigenous items from mission sites around the world, such as Labrador, Alaska, Nicaragua, and South Africa. We have objects related to American history, such as pieces from Abraham Lincoln's catafalque, a lock of George Washington's hair. This is a favorite of school children, by the way, and sections of the transatlantic cable. Something I'm most proud of is our musical instrument collection. We have the Auntie's violin shown here. It's the oldest known violin to have been made in America. We have the first piano known to have been made in America. This image shows the research team, which includes the former curator of the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Musical Instrument Division, a retired curator from the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, and a keyboard expert from San Francisco. They examined the piano. They identified it as being made right in Nazareth. It's Pennsylvania wood. And, you know, they think it's the first piano made here in America. The image on the bottom there is they also made a replica, so now we know what the instrument would have sounded like because they couldn't repair it to playing condition. So the instrument, or the image you see on the bottom is its premiere concert at the Museum of the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation. Okay, you can go to the next slide. We also have the 1776 Tandenburg Organ, one of 9 remaining instruments built by David Tandenburg, colonial America's greatest organ builder. Fun fact about this organ is that it's still playable, so we can still hear concerts on it. It was the organ that was played for George Washington when he visited Bethlehem. So if you come to a concert, you'll hear the same instrument that was played for George Washington. So these objects help us better understand the past, and we share this history with the public through guided tours and events. Of course, our goal is to increase visitors and cultural heritage tourists to our county, and to engage audiences in the history of our area by sharing the story of the Moravians and their remarkable contributions to American culture. So this is our annual Arts and Crafts Festival. Last June, we had the 43rd Annual Arts and Crafts Festival, a very popular event. And this event, you know, is made as a result of county support. We were able to provide extra COVID safety measures, including hand sanitizing stations for visitors, additional signage and marking paint to help keep people safely distanced during events. We also host Christmas in Nazareth and a Fall Harvest Festival. Okay. So this is our popular hands-on history camp. It runs for 2 weeks in June, and it allows young students to experience history through engaging activities led by experts. Next slide. This past June, campers learned about colonial architecture. They built this replica of the Gray Cottage using traditional building techniques. So it's a really, when we say hands-on, it is very hands-on. And to think, you know, to understand how they would have lifted those big logs or the big stones when they were building structures, it was a neat experience for those kids. Okay. We also offer free concerts on the lawn, free summer Sunday programs. This past year, the Moravian Historical Society is most proud that we continue to serve our community despite the disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. We reached new audiences of all ages, educational levels, and cultural backgrounds through a combination of virtual programs and modified, safely presented in-person programs. You can kind of make out in this image, we painted squares on the lawn to keep people distanced. It was appreciated by the community. We also developed a guided museum tour that allowed us to share the museum to small time-ticketed audiences. And really, with the exception of a few weeks in last December when the museums were mandated to close, we remained open to the public 7 days a week, year-round. We participate in Passport to History weekend, and now it's expanded to Passport to History Month. So we have we're part of a large group of historic sites and museums from around the county who open their doors for free to the public during the month of August. Okay. We provide historic Nazareth walking tours, and these are made possible, these and all of the programs that I've just mentioned are made possible through Northampton County Hotel Tax Grant funds. It's really made it possible for us to present accessible, affordable, and engaging programs that share local history. CIPP funds and Grow Norco funds have also helped us restore and maintain our historic structures. Okay. Our music and lecture programs are funded by the Hotel Tax Grant directly that supports these activities. It enables us to serve our diverse communities in the Lehigh Valley by providing high-quality, relevant educational programs that are accessible to all at low or no cost. It's important to us to not have any barriers to participation. So in addition to all that, we do publications. This is our Moravian Walking Tour Guidebook, and our latest publication is a book on Nazareth, published under the Images of America series. We're also very active in the community. Switch. This past year, we mentored 5 interns from 5 different colleges and universities. providing a valuable introduction to museum work. And we have a number of volunteers who help us with projects. We assist scholars and genealogists with research. And as you can see from this slide, we partner with many organizations throughout the Lehigh Valley. So our numbers, unfortunately because of COVID, we saw about a 20% drop in attendance from 2019 to 20. But virtual programs really allowed us to continue to engage our audiences from around the world who tuned in to learn more about various aspects of Moravian history. In 2020, we had 37,000 visits to our website from people from around the world, including 50 countries. And when visitors come to our website, our landing page has the Northampton County seal as well as our events page, so they see the support that is provided. I'm happy to report that after a long 18 months of low visitation due to COVID-19, people are once again returning to the Whitfield House. Since June, we have hosted in-person events instead of virtual events. This week alone, we welcomed 2 different tour groups, one a group of 11 from a German script class in Bethlehem, and the second was a large group of 75 children plus 11 chaperones for museum tours and activities on our lawn. During the last 3 months, we attained a 367% increase in visitors over the prior 3 months. So I hope that I've conveyed in this sort of brief presentation our appreciation for the funds provided by Northampton County. We really are truly grateful for the county's support of our organization and for the positive impact that this support has made. For 164 years, the Moravian Historical Society has been a source of pride for the county. So thank you for helping us serve our community. Any questions? I know I went through that fairly quickly because you have a long agenda, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions? It was a very good presentation.
Thank you.
You covered it. Covered a lot. Thank you. Thank you for what you do out there. Next.
I'm going to invite up our County Executive McClure. We would like to take this opportunity before council to recognize our CMed partners this evening.
Tina changed your agenda, Mr. Chairman. Did you know that?
Yeah, that's
My
fine.
apologies.
I know 5 comes after 2.
Did she tell you? Okay. Did she tell you that?
No, but we're flexible up here.
Okay, thank you, sir. We appreciate that alacrity. I think when you look at the numbers for the CMed program, and the experts are here, the people who've worked it and lived it are here for your questions if you have them. But when you look at the numbers, I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that a homelessness crisis was averted. Since January 2021, the CMed program has processed 2,087 applications for a total of $5,604,544. Utilities, 762 applications for a total of $631,722. This represents real people, real lives, real families with real children staying under a roof. So I think this program has been, just looking at the numbers, has been remarkably successful. In Northampton County, I need to single out some folks. Tina Smith, of course, our Director of Community and Economic Development, and Frank Brooks have done yeoman's work on the CMed program. Steve Barron, our Director of Fiscal Affairs, has worked very hard on this program. He's put more time into this effort than I think he thought he would, and I appreciate his efforts. Not in his job description, and he went and did it anyway. Robin Barbosa and Gary Rushman from Human Services. Robin is here. I don't think Gary is. They also have put a tremendous amount of time into this project, and I know Robin goes the extra mile to make sure your citizens are taken care of, and I want to thank Robin and Gary as well. And if I'm missing anybody, in the county, Steve's assistant has also been very important. Heather has also been very important. And Robin mentioned to me that there is a temporary human services employee as well, whose name is escaping me, who's also been vital in making sure that not only did these folks not end up homeless because they couldn't pay their rent or their utilities, thereby averting what I think was probably going to be a little humanitarian crisis in our own little corner of the world. The landlords also got paid. The landlords also got paid. People who have mortgages, people who have their own bills to pay. This is something that I think is an underreported and underdiscussed topic, which is the money went directly to the landlords unless they were specifically a non-participating landlord. So in addition to the humanitarian purposes, there were also solid economic purposes behind this program. So without further ado, I want to acknowledge our, can I have, Tina, may I have New Bethany, please? I would like to acknowledge New Bethany Ministries, Executive Director Mark Riddle, and Director of Social Services Jennifer Mall. Now, what we're about to recognize are our partners. These are the people who did the work with the folks who needed the support. And we are incredibly grateful for what they've done for us.
Lamont, I'm going to introduce our...
Great. Well, come on up to the mic and introduce your folks.
Hi, I'm Mark Riddle, and thank you very much.
Oh, you're
I just want to introduce also, this is Emily Forrester. She's our coordinator of the office. And before the pandemic, she was a caretaker, and she single-handedly housed 19 families in the city of Bethlehem in our Comfort Suites program. And that was an off-site transitional program, and now she is basically running the CMED program for Bethlehem. So I just wanted to acknowledge her as well. And Jennifer, of course, our social services director.
It's really awesome.
Makes it happen.
Council, does anybody have any questions for Mark or any of the other folks from New Bethany?
Just real quick, I mean, if somebody applied, what would be the turnaround time? Was there a waiting list? I mean, were we able to meet the needs almost immediately? I'd imagine you got more applications than we ever had in the past. I'd imagine there was some growth period where how you deal with it. So I'm just kind of wondering how you dealt with the lag time. Was there a lag time?
So, oh, thank you.
There are your
I
numbers.
got my answers right here.
Yep.
I will say, we have processed over 1,000 applications in the last 12 months, but Jen, do you
He's looking
want
for
to address
turnaround
that
time.
like more quickly? Yeah.
So we don't have per se a waiting list. Everybody that comes in, they are logged in and we start working on their file immediately. There is a lag time sometimes when we're working with the residents to get the documentation that they require, or going back and forth and with the landlords as well. So sometimes that does take a couple weeks to gather all of that information, but we do not have a wait list. Anybody that comes in, we will look at it. If they don't meet requirements, it's our rule at New Bethany that nobody walks out our door without some type of resource.
So even if they didn't meet this particular requirement, you still were able to direct them to
Yes,
some sort of resource?
Yes, we have around 8 different funding sources right now, and then if they don't meet any of that, we will reach out to our other community providers to get them what they need.
That's pretty amazing that we went through this and you guys were able to adapt so quickly without, almost everything now there's get on the list and we'll call you when your number's up. So that's amazing. Thank you for all you guys done. Yes, Mr. Rinsky.
Well, are you done?
Yes, go ahead.
So we've heard a lot about these kind of programs on the news, about how the turnaround has been horrible and how the money hasn't gone and reached the people that it's supposed to. So this seems like quite a success, and I think that that's awesome. And thank you for all the work that you do. One of the questions that I do have, though, is how do you reach more people? How do people find out about these programs who need them, in addition to the people that you're already reaching?
Excuse me. Director Smith will address that particular point because there was a plan.
Okay,
And it
great.
was executed.
So,
Don't run away, we gotta get pictures.
so far, we have done a lot of social media advertising, some Facebook boosts and things of that nature. We've also have done land to bus shelter advertising for those folks that utilize public transportation. And coming up recently, we will be on the Jumbotron at Music Fest.
Oh, wow,
So,
that's
yeah.
huge.
Yes.
And it's bilingual as well, I believe. It's
But-
bilingual as well.
Well, I actually had a conversation with somebody about this today, and I'm wondering why we're not reaching out to landlords directly. If we know who
They are.
generally the landlords are. Are we doing that?
Yep, and
Okay.
they'll tell you about it.
Okay, great.
Landlords that take applications and
If
give them
if
Yes.
you're gonna speak,
Give them
please come to
to
the,
tenants.
identify yourself and
I'm Emily, I'm the Housing Assistance Coordinator. We have the landlords, actually, we give them applications if they have tenants, and then landlords pass it around. We have a landlord engagement that Jen started with Third Street. So even the apartment complexes, we're in communication with them constantly,
Right,
sending us apps, so,
right, because this is really important work.
right.
So thank you.
you know what, we'll get the
Is there any-
pictures afterwards.
Yes,
We'll-
Mr. McGee.
Okay.
Yeah, just one question
Sure.
for the folks from New Bethany. I was actually thinking on kind of the same lines as Ms. Zirinsky. I was just wondering, how many facilities do you have? And because I never really knew. I always heard your name at council, and I never really knew how many facilities that you have, and how each facility also aids to get the word out.
Yeah, we serve 9,000 people a year, and our facilities are, we have on-site on the south side of Bethlehem, which is our flagship campus where most people know of us. They're on the corner of West 4th and Wyandotte, 378. At that location, we have a family transitional shelter that serves 12 families at a time. Any construct, as long as you have children 18 and under. Across the street from there, in an old restored kind of mansion home, are 7 units, 2 efficiencies, and then 5 family units. And that's from graduates of the transitional program. And that's subsidized by Bethlehem Housing Authority. Then we also have 2 single-room occupancy shelters, or buildings is a better, is permanent housing solution. One of them is in Copley, and the one in Copley has 20 units, so 20 single men and single women, all previously homeless. And then the one on the south side of Bethlehem has an additional 14 single units, single men and single women, all previously homeless. And then that's in addition to the food pantry, the soup kitchen, and then since 2020, our new housing assistance program, which is part of the CMED program, which is a staff of 5 people who were not on staff at New Bethany, with the exception of Emily, but we had to replace her in the place where she was promoted from. So we've greatly expanded in the new storefront office on the south side. But those are our residences. I did not mention a building that we have in Allentown as well that we own and operate. The clients there's 7 clients there, also single room, single men and single women. We manage the building. The clients are managed by the Conference of Churches. So that is a partnership that we have in Allentown.
And one last question.
Yeah.
You have a website, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And is this information on the
All
website
of
for
it.
the outreach and all?
Yeah,
Thank-
and I'll give personal tours as well, so you can kind of see it all. But yeah, it's newbethanyministries.org. Thanks for your question.
Well, seeing no more questions, I'm going to state one thing. I just can't thank you guys enough because I've read issues about this program, having issues some areas, and I have not heard any complaints or heard anything. So if you don't hear anything as a council person, I gotta believe it's running extremely well. So thank you very much for what you've done in Lamont. Executive, it's all yours from here on.
Thank you, sir. Well, we have so many experts in the room. If council has questions for them, I encourage that. So I forgot, I was talking about Robin Barbosa, who's just been fabulous throughout this CMED process, and they haven't bothered me with it either much, that tells you how, hard they're working on this. Gary Rushman I mentioned, but I forgot to mention Director Wondolowski. She too also has worked very hard on this project and should be recognized, and I'd like to call up one of her predecessors. He is the executive director now of the Easton Area Neighborhood Center, and he is Ross Marcus, and we'd like to honor Easton Area Neighborhood Center for their great work.
The Neighborhood Center is probably the smallest of the 4 organizations, but this program has been remarkable for us. The cases we've heard, the people we've met through the program. And so we're appreciative of the county's support, County Council, Mr. McClure, and the staff. So thank you.
Oh, I'd like to acknowledge the Third Street Alliance. My friend, the Executive Director, Alyssa Barada, and Director of Homeless Services, Katima Millsap. How are you?
Thank you so very much. I'm good. How are you?
Well, I will say, I want to thank Frank. When we first started this, he kind of jumped in with both feet and really helped us pull this together and really bring it home. We were, like back in March, worried about eviction, and we started working with the magisterial judges' offices around this. And then Frank had the brilliant idea to fund it. And so it made all the difference in the world. And the people that were served were directly as a result of his really thinking about how do we make this happen. So he's been the hero.
And we should note that, you know, Third Street has done $2,083,451 of rental assistance. That's a lot of rental assistance.
And quite frankly, with Katima and her team, we really have one staff person working on this, and she's a rock star. Her name is Ziana Keith. She couldn't be here today, but she's a rock star.
She absolutely is. She was able to hold, I'm sorry, my name is Dr. Katima Millsap. I'm the Director of Homeless Services at Third Street Alliance. Ziana Keith, she couldn't be with us today. She's our housing stabilization specialist, and she has really been holding down the fort in order to process applications for rental as well as utility assistance. So this really goes to her for ensuring that families are able to remain housed and they're able to keep their utilities on as well. And thank you to the county. Thank you to other providers that's doing the legwork as well too. I really appreciate it. Thank you all.
Any questions for Third Street?
Thank you.
Project. And now I'd like to acknowledge Project of Easton, who they have processed 1,057 various applications through the CMED program, and it's just been, Janice, are you here? Mm-hmm. Antoinette, come on up. Come on up. We thank you so much for your participation and for the hard work you've done. And if you'd like to say something,
I would,
please
thank
identify
you.
yourself.
I'd like to first introduce Antoinette Cavalieri, our program director, and Beth Ann Siebold, our navigator, who's done the heavy lifting. Michael Banis couldn't be here. He's in charge of our case support. I want to thank the county for calling on Project and allowing us to help in this really important effort. Hundreds of families have been served, and we were happy to be part of it. So thank you.
Any questions for Project? I think it's important, Mr. Chairman, to understand, and while they're here, I want to say this. The feds sent us a lot of money through various programs, starting with the CARES Act, to meet these needs, right? They saw, because of the economic disaster the COVID crisis caused, that there could be a homelessness crisis created above and beyond what we deal with typically. These organizations deal with it whether there's money coming down from Washington or Harrisburg or up here on the Hill or not. They're there all the time. And County Council historically has been very supportive of all of them, actually, but not anywhere near what they need. And they'll be there when this money dries up, and they'll still be fighting the good fight for all those folks who are, quite frankly, shelter insecure. I don't know any other way to describe it. That might not be a term of art, but that's what came to my mind. I'd like now to acknowledge Laurie Malloy, from North Penn Legal Services. She's the executive director, and Sarah Andrew, associate managing attorney. Now, so if you know anything about landlord-tenant law, you know eventually it ends up in front of a magistrate, and it's beneficial to have a lawyer when you're being evicted. And they can talk more about the kinds of counseling and representation they provide to folks who are in the CMED program. But I think they're just getting started now. I know that the moratorium has been extended, but one of these days they're going to be very busy, and they've been busy with us throughout the process, so we just wanted to honor them. Sorry, you want to say something?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, let's see.
Okay.
First, Laurie Malloy couldn't make it here tonight, so you just have me. So she sends her regrets. But as attorneys, advocates, we are in a position usually of representing people facing eviction, and we don't have resources to give them to prevent that eviction. So one of the wonderful things about the CMED program is that sort of for the first time ever, really, we are able to direct everyone to these agencies to get the funds to prevent the eviction. And as Mr. McClure said, the feds dropped money on us. You know, money seemed like it was falling from the skies at a certain point. But if you can't marshal your resources and your people to put into place a workable program, that doesn't help. But in Northampton County, Frank and his team were able to do that, and we really appreciate that and appreciate all of the agencies, because now we are able to work with them to keep our tenants housed and, you know, make the landlords whole and just kind of keep things at the status quo until the moratorium lifts and people can sort of have an opportunity to move around a little bit more freely. So I'm happy to answer any questions that people have about the legal services side of this, if anybody has any. Okay, thank you.
And I just like to say, you know, just to echo my point about them being here after the money's gone, you know, legal services has been underfunded for as long as I can remember, and it's only gotten worse, but they're still here. They're still fighting. For folks who otherwise can't afford counsel and representation, and they will be after the money's dried up too. And we just need to acknowledge that there are still these folks out here who are going to make sure that our folks who are having a difficult time in the economy, whether it's now or in the future, that they're going to be out there helping them. And finally, we'd like to acknowledge the CAFS program from the Community Action Committee of the Lehigh Valley. I don't think anybody's here tonight, but it was also important to acknowledge them. And with that, if you have any questions about the operations, and Mr. Barron can answer them, Mr. Brooks, Tina, Robin, they'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, Mr. Renzi.
So moving forward, I mean, you said that the money is dried up.
No, it's not. We still have plenty of money.
Oh, we do?
Yes, but
Okay.
it will one day be gone.
Okay, so, well, I just heard you say that twice, so I wanted to know how much money there is left.
Who's best to answer? You got that, Steve?
And may I add to that question? I heard totals from individual agencies. Do we have a grand total?
Yeah, hold on one second. Frank, what?
Well, the grand total on the rental applications was $5,604,544. And the utility applications was $631,722.
And that's all the agencies. Thank you.
Okay. So there are, so council members understand, there are various, we call them, it's not really a term of art, we call them buckets that the money fits into. And certain programs have certain rules, and I think the tenant navigators get a little frustrated sometimes, and I love how patient they've been with us when we say, okay, you need to pay for this tenant and these tenants out of this bucket as opposed to that bucket, because we have timing in which we have to spend the money in. So we've spent over $6 million to date between rental assistance and utility assistance. And we have approximately $34 million left. And again, that money does go in cycles as we see people who need to spend down money. And some people are running to the end of the assistance they can get out of one bucket. So maybe the rules will change based on how the pandemic is progressing through society. However, some of this money will also be used for homeowners in the future. Some of the buckets can be used for homeowners, the mortgage mitigation, the foreclosure crisis that is looming, that we know is going to be coming. So once a lot of those things get lifted, the moratorium on foreclosures and things progress through the courts, we're going to need North Penn Legal Services, we're going to need our tenant navigators and DCED to help with like putting those programs together and picking which sources of funds are best used for those services.
So I have a follow-up to that. So we are talking about mortgage mitigation coming from these funds as well. And how would homeowners get in touch with somebody to help them? I mean, these agencies aren't necessarily in that sphere. Do you go to lenders?
So right now there's not any programs to mitigate that foreclosure. Like there's nothing that has been set in stone yet. As those programs come out, a lot of that gets done through partnerships we have through HUD. A lot of that gets done through mortgage foreclosure diversion programs, which we'll set up with the Court of Common Pleas. We just don't know. I mean, there'll be a lot of different things, and some of this funding will go towards that ultimately.
So some of this $34 million is earmarked.
Could, yes. Could. Yeah, it depends on what the program looks like, and it depends on any other money we may or may not get from the federal government.
So is this a case of if we don't spend this money, we have to give it back?
In some cases, yes. We are trying very, very hard with the way we balance the money to make sure we give none of it back and that the most citizens of Northampton County get the most money they can get to help stop a foreclosure crisis. Thankfully, the federal government did a little bit to stop some of the foreclosures that we're going to be starting, obviously, this week. But it only seems like we get a temporary stay before things hit a crisis point, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions? Well, I just want to thank Frank and Tina. I mean, this came upon us quickly, and in our response time, you know, to get that money out and help families. I mean, this is huge. This saved families from being evicted and will save families. So for the agencies, I can't thank you enough for what you do every day on behalf of council, but, you know, to step it up during this pandemic like you have, we truly appreciate it. And this is what government's about, helping families and helping people in our community. So you're nailing it for us and you're making us look good. So thank you.
Back to the agenda.
I'm going to get a picture in the back. I just want to, we did bring treats for everybody on council as well. We'll give them to you later. I publicly want to thank Patty's Just Desserts. So these cookies also enabled us to support a local small business in Bethlehem Township. So if you're listening, thank you, Patty. And they taste as good as they look. So with that, getting back to our meeting, I want to welcome up our mayor for Wilsonborough, who is going to give you some information on their upcoming centennial celebration. Mayor?
Thank you. Hi, how you doing tonight? Thank you for having me and allowing me to present to you this evening. I'm Wilsonborough. I'm the mayor of Wilsonborough. I know you guys don't hear from us a lot. It seems to be the surprised face that everybody said when we came in tonight. You guys don't come here for a lot. Well, we're kind of coming here today, and now that I know where you guys and you folks are, I will be coming back more often. So first of all, my presentation for tonight is bringing back community for Wilsonborough. So as you may or may not know, Wilsonborough will be celebrating its 100th anniversary, or it would have been celebrating its 100th anniversary last year. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we are now, if you take a look at the logo, has the 100 or the 1 in the 0 on the end. So now we're basically celebrating the 101, and I'm going to give you a little bit of Wilson 101 right now, if I could, please. Next slide. So Wilsonborough community events. When I started as mayor 4 years ago, we really don't have any community events. So in 1920, Wilson Township positioned to become a borough. They petitioned the county. And then from 1912 to 1929, our population hit about 8,000. So we're about exactly that number now, maybe a little less, but we kind of maxed out. So it was a busy place. The Dixie building, which you saw in the initial logo, was a mainstay for business. We also had Mac Printing and a lot of other things. In 1970, we celebrated 50 years. Other great events that year was my birth, 1970. So it's kind of nice to be able to go right along and be able to keep track in my head based on the years when I was born. And then in 1981, the Wilsonborough Lions started their annual carnival. And the Wilsonborough Lions were a great asset to the Wilsonborough community. They did a lot of different events, and they helped out. And that carnival was around for as long as I can remember, and it gave us a sense of community. We used to have a lot of different events in the borough that have since been taken away. In 1995, we celebrated our 75th anniversary. And then in February of 2012, Wilsonborough Council voted to get rid of our community carnival from the Lions. There was a little bit of inner fighting, which I'll get more to when we get there. But in 2018, one of the things that the new Borough Council got to doing, and along with myself, was to put together our Wilsonborough Celebration Committee. One of the things that was completely lacking in my community is community events. You don't see anything where you have the people of the community getting together. Next slide, please. So why the celebrations were canceled? So as I had previously stated, there was a little bit of conflict between council members. You had some who were on the Lions Club, you had some who weren't on the Lions Club, and just kind of a little bit of animosity back and forth. So council asked the Lions, who usually got the park for free. In fact, they've donated community center, they paid for the original swimming pool, and a lot of other community vices that we use in the borough constantly. They asked them to start paying for it. Then they started going through all kinds of safety measures, asking for fire extinguishers in the food stand. They wanted them to pay 30% for the police services, requested the Lions pay additional electricity for the small pavilion, which they built and donated to the community, as well as there was some issues with street cleaning. Most of this was just bickering back and forth between our former mayor, who was a great guy, Dave Peruso. He was a member of the Lions, and a couple of the council people who were no longer on the Lions, and they just kind of butted heads. With all of this, with the celebrations being canceled, they actually pulled a lot of the infrastructure out of the park. The electric was taken out for any kind of community events. Water hookups over there were taken out. So they basically tried to make it so you could never have these events again. So when you're seeing all this stuff going on with people butting heads right now, this was the worst part of the politics that I've seen in Wilson, as far as just trying to kind of go back and forth with each other. Next slide, please. So when I came in, I was the president of the Wilson Football Association, the youth association, and then I was also, my kids are athletic, they're in sports, they're also in band, they're in a lot of different activities. And one of the things that I've been noticing with them is there's really nothing for them community-wise where they can get together and see people. Everything is texting, is on their phone. And with COVID-19, it was even worse. So community events are gonna help us with the mental health right now. Sports, getting kids moving is a big thing. It also helps to strengthen the identity of a town. When you mention Easton, you think Bacon Fest, you think Garlic Fest. When you think Bethlehem, you think Music Fest. I know we were all talking that. Wilson really has no identity. So we're looking to get that identity back, create business opportunities. People don't know where we are. We've been losing businesses right and left. Countywide events bring people from all walks of life together. Since we announced that we're looking to do a carnival and we're looking to do a celebration, we have been blowing up as far as our Facebook pages and our web pages with people with excitement like, hey, you're bringing this back. This is fantastic. I miss this. And it's going to create memorable moments for our towns. And overall, it's just going to give our folks a chance to have fun. I think with everything that's been going on and everybody kind of locked down, this is a place or a chance for us to get out and actually have fun and do something again. Next slide, please. So the task at hand. So next slide. So we created, first of all, the Wilson Celebration Committee, okay? This group of people was put together. It's probably about 6 people, and we have some additional volunteers coming in. I keep looking back at Sue, who's on our committee. We put together events. We have one parade. It's actually put together by the local VFW. We have really nothing else going on other than car shows. So we created a web page, celebrateWilson.org. We wanted to get the celebration out there. So once this event is over, we want to keep this going and keep the momentum going through our celebration. We've established social media sites. During COVID, we held COVID-safe events. So for Easter, my poor daughter, I dressed her up in an Easter bunny suit. We drove her around in a Jeep and let her wave and honk and say hi to the kids as they were going through because they couldn't have the egg hunt. We did a scavenger hunt with an app where we had our folks do different things on the application for points to try to beat each other as a competition. We've also been planning the celebration along with carnivals, and then we've been doing a lot of fundraisers just to get that infrastructure back, to put the electrical stuff back in the park. We have a beautiful park, and we never really use it. It's just for car shows. They pull in, they pull out, and there's nothing going on. And we want to establish future events. Next slide, please. So the cost of community. So the original grant that we put in for the hotel and hotel tax grant was approximately $35,000. Wilsonborough is going to match about 25%, and then we basically requested $26,250. If you say it really fast, it doesn't sound bad at all, but it's quite a bit. We were awarded $15,000, which was great, but due to COVID and our event being postponed, we had to return those funds. So we figured we started these planning about 2 years ago, and actually it was closer to 3 years ago because it's 2021, and we're seeing a lot of stuff coming in a little higher than we had originally anticipated. So once again, looking to get the infrastructure back in, the porta potties, the insurance, tents, a lot of the stuff from the previous carnivals and stuff were thrown away. We do have a lot of food vendors and crafters and stuff coming in, as well as bands. So it's going to be a really good 3-day event. But I just wanted to explain to you the importance of the hotel tax grant for us and how it would be very helpful with our event. That's all I have. Are there any questions, or what questions do you have for me? Thank you. Yes.
When are your car shows?
So the Lions Club is doing a Shine and Show. Do you remember what date that is?
The sign is at the high school.
There's a sign at the high school. I can get you the information for that.
Yeah, all right.
They are actually not having it at the park. They're having it on Washington Boulevard, which is really nice under the trees. I used to have all of that information right at hand. Willie Keck, who is the president of the Wilsonborough Lions Club, was on our committee, and he passed away. He was a big hole that we are trying to fill right now, but he did a lot for us. He was one of the guys who was pushing for the Lions car shows and helping us get stuff there. I can definitely send you the information on the car shows.
Thank you.
You got it, yes.
Yeah, this is the Economic Development Committee, so I just wanted to take a couple of quick questions. I've never seen the Dixie look as good as it did on that logo. Can you tell us, is anything going on there? And also, you mentioned Mac Printing. I recall that closed a little while ago. Can you give us an update as to
Yeah,
anything
so
that's
I will
going
be
on
happy to
with
give you an
those
update on the Dixie building. First of all, when I came in 4 years ago, so this isn't a campaign speech. This is just me being new to the job.
Fine. You can.
So what it was I came in.
Sal's given us plenty, so you're more than welcome.
So what happened when I came in was I met with the owner of the Dixie building, hoping to be real positive. I figured, well, maybe if I sit down and talk and we could help him out, it would work. So I was warned by several councilmen, you're dealing with a gentleman and a company that's going to give you a song and a dance. And I said, no, we got this. And I think I actually spoke to Mayor Panto, and I actually spoke to Tara as well, and a couple other ones, Councilwoman Mysterinsky. And I was like, hey, and he gave me this beautiful song and dance. I have some prospective buyers, and I'm doing my due diligence, and this is fantastic. So fast forward a year later, hey, where are you? How's your due diligence coming? We got some buyers, and we're doing our due diligence. So year 3 comes around, we're like, excuse me, where are we at? We have our solicitor currently. There is a public lawsuit for the Borough of Wilson versus the owners of Wilson Park. We are suing the owners of Wilson Park for creating an attractive nuisance, as well as to try to get them to move on the property. We went in with our code team. We took pictures of the building with lead paint, asbestos, drops and holes in the floor that will go 3 stories down, elevator shafts that are wide open. We also went in with sinkholes. I don't know if any of you folks know the Dixie building, but they used to actually bury boxcars in the ground, and they would pump fuel oil into those boxcars and use them for storage to power the facility. So those are all sinking now. We have sinkholes in the back. We actually have a sinkhole close to our sanitary water system. But the lawsuit is at the point now, COVID delayed quite a bit. It is going to the, he had his, I think we submitted over 150 or 135 complaints against Wilson Park. They had their chance to go to court for their dispute of the claims, and I believe only 3 were thrown out. So all the other ones are sticking. So it looks like what'll happen is once it starts going to court, it's gonna start costing him money. That's when we'll see movement. Now, the other thing that we were thinking of doing and we talked about doing was if we condemn the building, then we're stuck with a giant white elephant, and then it's $4 million just to abate the asbestos and the lead paint, and then we have to find a buyer for it, and we just don't want to, as a borough, we don't have we don't actually have no loan debt at all. We're looking to build a police station and fix our pool. So if we can get the legal system to kind of jump on the Dixie building, that would be fantastic. The Mac Printing building.
Before you go on
Yeah.
to that one, we've tried here with tax incentives. It was in a KOZ
Yep.
zone. We've discussed LERTA. That's the kind of property that screams out for those types of incentives, but to no avail. So I wish you all the luck in your pursuit.
Yeah, we tried that too. He came to us again, told us he had a buyer. He wanted to see if we've extended, the different tax incentives. Everything always seems to be a song and a dance, and we were talking earlier, it's not gonna be until it starts costing him money and he can't afford it for it to start moving. And Mac Printing, which is the other building, we actually have tenants in there now. We have a mail order pharmaceutical company. One of the big things that we double checked on first was no narcotics. So it's just basically like asthma medication, stuff like that, but they actually do mail order fulfillment and shipments out of the building. So they're actually using that building. It's being kept up and maintained very well, but the Dixie building, when I see the silk mill and I see a lot of the other projects in Easton, I do get a little jealous, I will not lie. It's very tough to kind of look at that, knowing that for 30 years that's been sitting like that.
Thank you.
You got it.
With the amount of damage that you've said the building has, is there any hope for remediation? I mean, I can't imagine that you could do anything with that building but level it.
Leveling it would probably cost more than refurbishing it.
Really?
It is probably one of the most well-built buildings I have ever been in or seen. You're talking 4-foot cement and steel columns. And it was actually 4 separate buildings. They joined them together to make more, but it's probably one of the most solid buildings I've ever been in.
So with the sinkholes and the empty shafts and the holes from one floor to another, that's still a solid building?
Yes, it's still a solid building. It's just a matter of going in and fixing the stuff that's wrong with it.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's one of my goals. My goals is new police department, bring back community events, and get the Dixie building running. It's got to get something in there. It's
So
really
with
tough.
You said that there are freight cars
Yes.
buried in the ground. Is there still fuel in there?
We were told that they were taken out. I have learned not to believe anything that the owners say at this point.
Yeah, because any sort of underground storage tank for oil or gas or any
They
sort
use
of
paraffin
fuel,
too. They put paraffin in there for the wax for the Dixie cups.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That seems like that. Freight cars, I don't know how long they last, but it seems like that area might need.
It's
a
gonna
lot of
definitely need something.
remediation.
Yep, a lot of
Wow.
remediation.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you. Anything else?
Is there any other questions? Yes, Mr. Myers.
With those cars buried in there, is that an EPA issue?
I believe it would be. We don't know if they're still there or not. We haven't had the full, we were told that they were removed. Once again, I don't believe anything. I'm a Missouri boy. I'm a show me state kind of person. If I don't see it, I don't believe it. And like I said, with the sinkholes coming in, it could be just the boxcars collapsing in. And that's what I'm worried about. One of the things I'm worried about.
Is Frick still using that as a storage area?
Frick applied this past year for a temporary CO to use the facility, and they brought one small corner up to code in order for them to use it. They're up for renewal in August, but there hasn't been any movement for us to even possibly consider reissuing a CO. So it's gonna have to wait until August to find out, the end of August, to find out whether or not we can reissue it. But I would prefer the building be locked up, all the fish out of the pool, and try to fix it as best we can.
And you're hoping that the owner pays for all of this?
Or he sells to somebody who will.
Are you done, Kerry?
Or if I ain't, I am now.
Thank you, thank you.
Got it. Anybody?
Is there any other questions? Thank you and good luck there. Sounds like you're working hard to
Thank
make it
you.
a better community. Keep up the good work.
So with your permission, for the next full council meeting, we're going to have the reprogrammed resolution there for you so they can move forward with their plans for their event.
Got it.
Okay?
Great.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, at some point,
Yes.
let me know what I can do for you, because I'm your representative.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, I've been reluctant to come down to the county council. We try not to. Older council members who've been on the committee there, hey, don't bug them for a lot. And it was really warm and welcoming when I came down here. They're like, we don't see a lot of people from Wilson or anybody come down at all. It's one of those where we're starting to get to the point where we need to open up and ask for help. And I think the hardest thing for a community to do is ask for help. But our infrastructure is older, our businesses are going away. We have to reestablish it. And like I said, the parks and stuff are definitely something we're looking to do, but I think that's going to be where the big key is. So.
We don't bite, we just keep coming.
All right, cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have HUD action plan request left to discuss.
That is correct. So Mr. Brooks is going to come up and tell you about all of the wonderful applications we've received for this year's CDBG project. Frank?
Good evening, council members. Thank you again for the kind words for the CMed program participants. Thank you very much. So the resolution before you is the result of a process that DCED ran, requesting our community to submit applications for CDBG, home, and ESG funds. As part of the application process, local municipalities, nonprofit agencies, and organizations were invited to submit an application with eligible projects. DCED provided public notice, and we used Zoom technology to hold community meetings and other outreach. And even during these trying times, the result was 46 applications were submitted. DCED will be funding 31 applications by this request using $3,083,705, which is the HUD entitlement that we received to fund these programs. 12 applications we found were requesting funds to respond to the coronavirus, and DCED was able to fund them using other COVID funds that we have, as you can see. We referred 3 applications to other county departments for funding, and I believe that 2 of the 3 were funding. Another one was a DPW project that in a senior center that DPW was able to fix, so that was easy. So out of the 46 submitted applications that we received, 43 applications were able to receive funding. The approval of this resolution will allow the HUD funding to address affordable housing needs, housing rehabilitation assistance, funding towards our municipalities, their infrastructure needs, and public facility improvements. So I also provided you with a list of all the projects, and if you look at the list, you'll see some very good projects. And even despite all the hardships that the COVID has cost us, the municipalities really came to bat and our agencies and provided us with some really wonderful projects. And I hope you agree and approve this resolution so we can submit this action plan in time to HUD. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Any questions? Yes, John.
Yeah, just real quickly, I always like to look at administrative costs. I know they're authorized, but it was my understanding that when we took over Easton's portion that we would be responsible, but we've still got $140,000 in administrative costs to the Easton RDA. Can you explain what their role is and why we're paying administrative costs when we have taken over that part?
That's a great question. What we did is our partnership with the city of Easton, we split the administration right in half so that the RDA staff will still be existing. The RDA staff runs the projects for Easton, and Easton had a large relative CDBG project too. So they merged them together We do the overall administration of it, but using the RDA allows us also to reach into the city of Easton, and they run those particular programs for us, for their half of the administration money. There are true partners in this endeavor.
Okay, so this wasn't like the 911 centers where we
Oh,
took
no,
over?
no.
Okay, so my impression was that we would be taking over, and we would spare them the administrative expense and personnel costs. So they've maintained their own staff rather than turning it all over to us.
Correct.
Okay.
But the benefit was 2 new HUD programs, so that population put us over, so we wound up getting home in ESG, which is another $1 million worth of HUD funding additionally, which really played a significant portion during the COVID pandemic.
Okay, well, thanks for the explanation.
Thank you.
I think she had
Mr.
her-
McGee?
Okay. Yeah, to follow up on his question first is, I still think that's brilliant what you did with the city of Easton, bringing us money back, and how it twofolded it with the pandemic. Yeah, and my other question is, some of these are some road projects for some of the cities, boroughs, whatever, and I guess I'm surprised I don't see more road projects on this list. You know, I mean, that people would have submitted, because the roads are a real struggle. I know the state covers most of the roads, but some of these are
And
in town.
liquid fuels also, correct?
And what is that?
And liquid fuels also that the municipalities take advantage of.
Okay.
What municipalities have been doing, we look at it as probably every other year. If a smaller municipality asks for funding 1 year, they'll get funding, but they'll wait a year or so, because the eligibility and their size, and making sure that the CDBG money gets to all the municipalities.
I see. It looks like a pretty good spread throughout the county. Thank you.
Ms. Zirinsky, did you have a question?
I was just wondering if any more money or funds were available, or did you just spend it all down?
You mean? Is it all allocated?
All allocated?
Yes.
Okay. And where was the funding source from? You said it was CDBG and home, and then there was another fund.
ESG, Emergency Solutions Grant, which we use to prevent homelessness.
Okay. Because some of these, not that I disagree with anything on this list, but some of these improvements were like ADA compliance in
Correct.
parks and things like that.
Correct.
So it's really interesting to see the diverse use of this money to do some of these projects that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to do, that are still really important. So, and I did see other staffing, Safe Harbor Shelter staffing needs, Easton Area Neighborhood Center, and, you know, I realize that we do need people to do all these things, because our numbers, our needs are great, and yet sometimes the staffing needs are overwhelming for the individuals that are there. So this is really an awesome program, and thank you to both of you for putting this together and allocating these funds the way you did and working so hard. It's important work.
Yes, Mr. Heckman.
I just have one question. Number 16, BLT International, Inc., Subway Salads and Sandwiches.
The other rescue.
Oh, I'm sorry. When can I ask that question?
Well, you can ask that, but that's not the HUD.
You're making me hungry now. I mean, geez, salad sandwich?
I'm sorry. I just ripping through this. Well, let me know when I can ask that question, because I have a question.
Let's get Steve up now. Maybe he can answer that, if that's all right, Frank. If we can get, Steve probably knows that answer.
Frank, I don't have a question for you. Thank you. Great job.
Yes.
Steve on the other
Mr.
hand.
Heckman.
No, I just had a question. Subway Salads and Sandwiches, BLT International. Isn't that a national franchise?
It is a small business under our grant program, and yes, it is a franchise. They do pay a franchising fee, but they qualify for the small business grant because they are owned by they're owned by a franchisee. The person can only get one grant per franchise they own. So say this individual applied, say they were a franchisee of Subway, Pizza Hut, Pizza Hut isn't a Subway, but like Domino's, and, you know, Jersey Mike's, they could only get for one business. It's no different than, the owner that comes to mind is the owner of the Bayou. He owns 2 locations of the Bayou restaurant, along with Whiz Kids Cheesesteak Shop in Bethlehem.
All right.
He was only eligible for 1 grant, but applied for all 3 businesses.
No, and I remember because I said, and I know we don't go beyond 1. I mean, my concern is if, like McDonald's, I don't know if they bought them all back. I know that Ray Kroc went on a mad tear to throw all the franchises out and buy them back. I don't know about Burger King. I don't know about any of them. But I mean, my concern is that, granted, it's a local franchisee owner, but at the same token, these are billion-dollar businesses, ultimately. So I just sort of, I don't know. It's a line that I'm a little shaky with, but I'm not going to not approve it because, as you say, the franchisee, I assume, lives in the Lehigh Valley.
Yes, and they don't live in the Lehigh Valley, but they have 1 business. So some people don't necessarily live in the Lehigh Valley, but their business is located in the Lehigh Valley. Some of the franchises, so for example, Burger King, you mentioned Burger King. Burger King used to be individually owned and operated franchise. A company was formed by a couple of the franchise owners and started buying them up. Domino's Pizza has sort of gone the same way. The reason I know that, my mother-in-law and father-in-law used to own Domino's Pizza. So one of the things, there's a company called 2 Ton Incorporated that owns all of the Burger Kings in the area, and that's a real name. That's the company that owns it. And they're located in Allentown, but they own several franchises. Because of their diversity of the franchises, they wouldn't apply for something like this. And they don't have an individual name attached to it. So we're looking for true small business owners that have a name attached to it. They may have a corporation or doing business as for liability's sake, but we have vetted those through.
So the check would go to who?
The check actually goes to the Subway, whatever the name doing business as there. It's their corporation.
Subway salads and sandwiches.
Correct, yes. It goes to them, but that's what their business is, and they're a Pennsylvania corporation, and that is a single owner in Northampton County that we vetted those through the chamber.
I just wanted to check on that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. I know a lot of research goes into every one of these applications. It's very time-consuming, and there's so many different avenues you have to look at, you know.
It's actually, Tina's knowledge and the chamber's knowledge is awesome, and actually, if there is a business that somebody in the room doesn't know or has gone to, back in my heavier days when we used to eat more, you would know some of these business owners, right? So that being the case, we get we have a great deal of knowledge and maybe even know some of these business owners as, you know, active members of the community. But unfortunately, some of them we have to do more research on.
Well, you and I both now know the bicycle shop owners, which is a good thing from the Pizza Hut owners. But anyway, that being said, and I wasn't trying to give you all the credit. I realize it's the chamber and Tina's group down there. You just happen to be standing there, Steve. Thanks. So I was really thanking Tina and her department. I think I saw Mr. McGee's hand up. Thank you, Mr. McGee.
Steve, while you're at the mic, if you would be so kind to go to the last page on the CBG grants, the home program. Can you just explain it? I know some of it, but can you just explain?
Yeah, that's a Frank thing. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please don't go far.
Subs.
I won't.
So we've been using the home program as a supplement to our home improvement program. Easton uses it to construct some new housing. We use it to do some home improvements all around Northampton County. We do roofs, and we help out an awful lot of seniors' homes so they can age in place. So that's what we've been using our home funds.
Is it also for the application for first-time home buyers too?
We don't fund it
in this one, or is that a different program?
We don't fund it through the home or CDBG.
Okay. And then, so the last one is CHDCO set aside. Can you tell me what that is?
That's a CHODO. The CHODO is a HUD term. That's actually the nonprofit group that actually runs your home improvement program and builds housing for, affordable housing for low-income folks.
Wow. Thank you. And,
Say that again?
Community Housing Development Organization.
Referred to as a CHODO. Nice catchy HUD term.
and is any of this set aside for, is there veterans involved in any of this? Or
In every program.
in every,
In every
of all four of these line items?
All tightly woven into it, yes.
Thank you.
Before you go, are any of these programs on the last page part of the Blady program that the mayor's trying to use? Are they gonna
I
use that?
don't believe so.
That was-
Are they eligible for any of this?
Wilson, if you talk about the
The back page of the home issue.
oh, the home program, if you're talking about the mayor of Wilson and
The
Wilson,
mayor- Any mayor that comes back with a blighted house project.
yes, yes,
They're eligible for that?
yes. Mhm.
That was actually, if I may, Chairman, that was the last question that I just couldn't recollect. The blight study that we did that draw any of the, did any of this come out of that information from the blight study that we're doing in the county? The one we did last year?
It's nice, and Marcus here can go back and talk further on the blight study. But the blight study actually tells you where it is.
Sure.
And then you use home funding to kind of go after it.
So did that draw some of these?
Yes, it
Draw-
will certainly.
okay,
and that's-
identify.
That's the roadmap for
Okay.
us, yes. Mhm.
Thank you.
Mr. Myers, yes.
Mr. McGee, and where'd Billy go?
He's right there.
Not him, not you. Steve, back. I'm totally confused.
He looks like.
Lafayette Cleaners,
Yes.
that's on the list. Where does that exist at?
I'd have to go back and look. There's so many businesses.
Because they come up with a legal name, but April's Cleaners. What-
So okay. So it could be a cleaning service where somebody owns multiple locations. And if they're doing business under the name April's Cleaners or whatever, their incorporated might be Lafayette Cleaners because they're in the, Lafayette area. Oh, is it a dry cleaner? So it's a dry cleaner. I'm sorry.
That was my question.
Sorry. So it could be a cleaning business too. There are just so many of them.
Any other questions? Any other discussions for economic development? Yes, Mr. Kukas.
Yeah, one brief thing I wanted to mention. We did recently receive an email from VIA of the Lehigh Valley indicating that they were no longer going to be operating a thrift store. They were no longer going to be sponsoring the basketball, the high school all-star game. Those of you that have been around a while remember it used to be called the Lark Classic. And also the other event that they've canceled is their sponsorship of the marathon. And the marathon was an event that was generating significant interest and hotel stays here in the valley. So what I wanted to do is maybe ask our staff or our Discover Lehigh Valley representative to look into that and see if there's any way to revive the marathon for 2022, because, again, it did actually, we talk about, the uses of the hotel tax and wanting it to generate hotel stays, and the marathon was an event that was growing and was generating local hotel stays. So if we could please look into if there's any way of reviving that for 2022, I'd appreciate either Discover LV or our department looking into seeing if that can go on. As far as the thrift store, it was great when I was a college student. I'm ashamed to see it go. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? What marathon is it? I'm the new kid on the block, and I sure in hell ain't run no marathon.
It was called the Lehigh Valley Marathon. It started in Allentown. It wound down along the river, and it ended right here in the center Oh, Tina wants to tell us about
I
it?
can, it was the last qualifying marathon before the Boston Marathon, and so it was a big deal. The main driver behind the marathon was a gentleman named Jerry who worked for VIA, and sadly, he passed away. So it kind of lost some momentum. Consequently, Karen and I were just talking about perhaps bringing them in. They have a new director to talk about the direction, because I too had concerns. Where are they getting their funding now that they're not doing the marathon? They closed the thrift shops. I didn't see a lot of other activity. I have no idea what their hotel tax application may look like, but we can definitely reach out to them and ask them to come in to do a presentation.
Yeah, 'cause they also did a banquet, a sports banquet before their basketball game, that they actually put people into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Zirinsky.
Should, we should ask them or bring their executive in before we go any other route and ask somebody else to take over that marathon. I just,
Thank you.
yeah, because obviously there's something going on there that we don't have the full story for, it seems. So it would be good to have a clearer picture.
Okay,
Thank you.
Seeing, unless somebody else has economic development business, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. We have our council meeting in 10 minutes starting, so thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.
That'll be on the next agenda.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Awesome, thank you, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
The mayor?